Today we pay special tribute to Major General Michael E. Stencel on the occasion of his retirement from the United States Air Force. We are honored to have with us our presiding officer today's ceremony, General Daniel R. Hokanson, Chief, National Guard Bureau. Please stand for the entrance of the official party and remain standing for the playing of honors by the 234th Army Band, the singing of the national anthem by Sergeant Major Tasha Cruz, followed by the invocation given by Chaplain Colonel Retired Scott Delbridge. In honor of the occasion of Major General Stencel's retirement, General Hokanson is deferring honors to General Stencel.
Say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Let us pray. O God, our help in ages past and our hope for years to come, we come together this afternoon to celebrate the service and the work of Major General Michael Stencel, but also to celebrate the work of all who have served and continue to serve this great state and nation. We thank you for the way you have led and guided General Stencel's career over many decades, and for the gifts of leadership he has demonstrated, and for surrounding him with a supportive spouse, family, as well as the support and counsel of many who have served alongside of him. We are a people who look to our leaders, and we trust you, O Lord, will continue to prepare and call our citizens to carry on the leadership that General Stencel has modeled. I know that General Stencel is trusting that others will hear the call, heed the call, and do the sacrificial work so that all American citizens may benefit. We know that our nation continues to be a beacon of hope and light on a hill during dark days. Thank you for allowing General Stencel to be a part of leading that work. As you have guided and opened doors, we ask now that you will continue to guide this ceremony, and we give you all the honor. Amen.
Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Thank you to the 234th Army Band, Sergeant Tasha Cruz, and Chaplain Delbridge. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for sharing this special occasion today. There are also many friends, family, and special guests. We are extremely honored to have in attendance General Stencel's family, which include his spouse, Sue, and mother, Mary. Sue and Mary are being presented flowers for their support to General Stencel and their devotion and support to the National Guard and to the service members and their families. Also in attendance today are General Stencel's children, Nathan, Nicole, and Angela, and his sister, Leah Mason. General Stencel would also like to welcome our distinguished guests. We ask you to hold your applause until the end. Mr. Dan Little, former First Gentleman of Oregon. Mr. Craig Wilhelm, civilian aide to the Secretary of the Army. Mr. Fred Reese, Deputy Assistant Secretary of the Army Emeritus for Training, Readiness, and Mobilization. Major General Duke Purack, Deputy Director, Air National Guard. Major General James Creasel, Director, ECJ-7, and Reserve Component Advisor to the Commander, UCOM. Major General William J. Edwards, Deputy Director for Strategic Initiatives, J-5, Joint Staff, Pentagon. Major General William Pendergrast, Joint Task Force Civil Support, Acting Commander. Major General Gregory Day, Special Assistant to the Combatant Commander for NORAD Northcom on National Guard matters. Colonel Alan Gronwald, Oregon's new Adjutant General, and his wife, Rebecca. Major General Retired Deb Ward. Major General Retired Daryl Bohack. Major General Retired Julie Bentz. Major General Retired Daniel O'Halloran. Major General Retired Dan Bunch. Major General Retired David Enyart. Major General Retired Eric Bush. Mr. Fritz Graham, U.S. Representative Andrea Salinas' field rep. Ms. Andrea Cooper, Governor Kotek's Chief of Staff. Mr. Constantine Sevier, Governor Kotek's Public Safety Advisor. Mr. Doug Graff, Governor Kotek's Wildfire and Military Advisor. Brigadier General Jennifer Party, Director, Joint Staff. Brigadier General David Unruh, Air Component Commander. Brigadier General Retired Aaron McMahon. Brigadier General Retired Donna Prigmore. Brigadier General Retired Jeffrey Silver. Brigadier General Retired James Cunningham. Brigadier General Retired Wayne Green. Brigadier General Retired Douglas Pritt. Brigadier General Retired Steve Beach. Brigadier General Retired Steve Gregg. And Command Sergeant Major Lee Smith, Command Senior Enlisted Leader. It is now my distinct pleasure to introduce to you the presiding official for today's ceremony, General Hokanson.
If I could just make one comment, the reason why that list was so long is this is such an incredible organization, and for those that were retired, they really paved the way for all of us still in uniform today to realize so many great senior enlisted leaders and general officers. So thanks to all of you. I'm part of that process, so thank you for what you've done to make this organization what it is. Good afternoon, everyone. I can't tell you how nice it is to be back in Oregon. Honorable Manning, Honorable Graber, Mr. Wilhelm, Lieutenant General Pierce, General Retired Reese, fellow general officers and senior enlisted leaders, distinguished guests, family and friends, thank you for joining us for such a special occasion today. It is an honor to be back in Oregon, a greater honor to be among some of the finest officers in the National Guard's history, and the greatest honor to celebrate the extraordinary career of a colleague and a friend. When I think of the Adjutant General of Oregon, like Major General Retired Reese and Major General Mike Stencel, I can't help but be humbled to count myself among them. After all, you could not ask for finer company or more principled leadership than Fred Reese and Mike Stencel. Kelly and I are blessed to know both of you. Mike's tenure as TAG of the Oregon National Guard began with a baptism by fire, quite literally. It was 2015, one of the worst fire seasons in the nation's history. In Oregon alone, more than 631,000 acres burned. 125 members of the Oregon National Guard were deployed in support of O-Plan Smoky. At the time, it had been more than a decade since the Oregon National Guard ground troops had been called to fight a fire. Now, for those here today who haven't been involved in fighting a wildland fire, there's one thing you should know. A wildfire can change directions quickly. You could be behind a blaze when suddenly the wind switches, and now you're in front of it. You have to be ready for hazards to come from any and all directions. The pace is unpredictable and many times unrelenting. And it turns out, that's a pretty good analogy for being a TAG. In the 8 years since he took the mantle of Adjutant General, Mike has navigated formidable challenges, responding to a global pandemic, civil unrest, multiple overseas deployments, supporting Operations Allies Welcome, and managing wildfire seasons that transformed into wildfire years. Ultimately, Mike oversaw the mobilization of Oregon Guardsmen for almost every mission our National Guard does. For most people, that would be more than enough, but Mike Stencel is not most people, far from it. After graduating from the University of Washington, and no, I'm not ready to talk about the end of the Pac-12 today, Mike joined the National Guard, graduating from the Air Guard Academy of Military Science, and soon afterwards he began pilot training. He earned his wings at Columbus Air Force Base, trained at the Squadron Officer School at Maxwell, and completed the Aircraft Mishap Investigation course at Kirkland, as well as the Air Base Combat Engineering course at Wright-Patterson. He earned and holds a command pilot rating with more than 1,900 hours in military aircraft, a majority of those in the F-15. And for those not familiar, that's quite an achievement, just short of being a helicopter pilot. Okay. Sorry. I knew that would be. Okay. Yeah. And in the beginning, that was Mike's plan, to fly for 20 years and retire as a lieutenant colonel. But it turns out, when you're exceptional, people notice, and your plans and your path can change. That led Mike to learn and lead at every level. The 142nd Fighter Wing, the 609th Air and Space Operations Center at Al Udeid Air Force Base in Qatar, the Oregon Air National Guard, the dual-hatted Air National Guard assistant to the commander of the 11th Air Force in Alaska, and ultimately, the Adjutant General of Oregon. From operations to the maintenance group, to mission support to the fighter wing, every opportunity and every experience was a lesson that would inform Mike's leadership as the Adjutant General. After all, as Mike would say, quoting John F. Kennedy, too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. Mike was never, and has never, been afraid of asking the hard questions, making the hard decisions, or grappling with the hard problems. He brings thoughtfulness, perspective, and a tremendous breadth of experience to every endeavor. And through that, he makes everyone and everyone around him better. Take the 142nd Fighter Wing's last operational readiness inspection. They had replaced their entire fleet of F-15s, which, with lesser leadership, could have caused chaos and confusion. But the 142nd knocked it out of the park, demonstrating the readiness needed to keep our promise to America to be always ready, always there. Or consider Mike's commitment to ensuring our formations resemble the communities we serve. As Adjutant General, he supported women in visible and critical leadership roles in the Oregon National Guard. He appointed the first female Army National Guard Chief of Staff, the first female TAG exec, the first woman to run the State Partnership Program, and the first female general officer in the Oregon Air National Guard, Brigadier General Donna Prigmore. Mike is also a fighter, and not just in the cockpit of an F-15. Thanks to his ferocious advocacy, the Oregon National Guard is scheduled to receive modern F-15EXs and F-35s for Portland and Kingsley. And Oregon also landed 2 future cyber operations squadrons. These are enduring investments in the Oregon Guard and its future. Mike's vision and commitment to excellence made him a perfect choice to chair the Adjutant General Association of the United States Air Force Structure and Modernization Committee, and then vice chair for the Air Committee. His support in voicing the Guard's value proposition to Congress and senior Air Force officials was tremendously powerful, and I am grateful for his support and advocacy. Like many of you, I'm very lucky that he was my TAG. Looking around, I'm not the only one grateful for Mike's wise counsel and enduring friendship. The number of current and former general officers, senior NCOs, and leaders from every level here today speaks volume about Mike's relationships and the respect of his peers. But I think it's most important to acknowledge that for all Mike's accomplishments, he did not take this journey alone. None of us do. We are able to serve our states and our nation because of the sacrifices of our loved ones and what they make on our behalf. The long days, long distances, and the longing to be together when the mission says otherwise are facts our Guard families endure. But they stand behind us, they support us, their love, understanding, and occasional forgiveness make our service possible. And so I want to take a minute to acknowledge the Stencel family. This is a celebration of them as well. Sue, I cannot thank you enough for all you do for Mike and our Oregon National Guard family. Thank you for your service, your sacrifice, and your enduring support. Nathan, Nicole, and Angela, thank you for lending us your dad. He is indescribably proud of each and every one of you, and our nation is a better place because he made a difference every day that he was away from you. Mike's mom, Mary, and his sister and brother-in-law, Leah and Mike Mason, are also with us here today. Thank you for the years of encouragement and support. There is no substitute for the strength the family provides, as being always ready, always there begins at home. Mike, it has been a privilege to work with you and learn from you, and I am proud to honor you today. But I do worry this may pale in comparison to the honors you will receive next Saturday. You see, Mike's been selected as the Grand Marshal Emeritus of the Lynn County Veterans Day Parade in Albany, Oregon. To be perfectly clear, in the parade's more than 70-year history, there have been many Grand Marshals, like Bob Hope, Raymond Burr, Ronald Reagan, and Sally Ride. But there's been only one other Grand Marshal Emeritus. He was also a pilot, also a service member, also renowned for innovation and wisdom. His name was Jimmy Doolittle, the legendary hero of World War II. That's the standard Mike Stencel sets, and that's the standard he achieves. Yeah. All right. Mike, congratulations on an extraordinary career of selfless service to our state and our nation. Well done, my friend. Well done.
Thank you, General Hokanson. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome former Oregon First Gentleman Dan Little.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you, General Hokanson, for allowing me to participate today. This is a really special occasion. It's amazing. As I was introduced, my name is Dan Little. I'm the former First Gentleman of Oregon, and I'm a little nervous because this is Kate's thing, so public speaking isn't necessarily my forte. But I wanted to make sure I said that first line right and didn't say something like former Governor Brown's husband, former First Gentleman. Kate and I are still together. I'm not Kate Brown's former husband, just so we're sure, just so we're clear on that. Luckily, we are still happily married, and Kate is very much enjoying her retirement, as I hope you will too. Unfortunately, Kate couldn't be here. She is currently on a teaching fellowship at the University of Chicago's Institute of Politics, but she sends her best wishes. It turns out she doesn't do retirement very well either. I hope you are better at it than she is. When the role of First Gentleman was bestowed on me, which is kind of the weirdest title, right? First Gentleman of Oregon. I pictured it as being like the person that greets people at the front door. It's like, General Hokanson, nice to meet you, or showing you to your seat. If you'll please be seated here, that'd be great. Or the person that mixes the drinks. It's like, First Gentleman, it's like, would you like your martini shaken or stirred, Sue? Turns out it's a little bit more interesting. As first spouse, there's only, when you think about it, there's only 44 first spouses in the nation right now. So every governor could have a first spouse, but there's only 44. Currently, the first lady is Amy Kotek Wilson, one of my friends and colleagues, and I meet with her once in a while. Anyway, I've got like these great business cards. It says First Gentleman of Oregon, so I know that all you guys in the room are like, wow, how do I get a First Gentleman card? I got boxes of them left over, so we have traveled a fair amount together, and so there's plenty. First Gentleman, there's kind of two responsibilities. One is to make sure that you're keeping your governor up and running at their fullest potential, and that's true for like all of us spouses, right? We want to make sure that our partners are just like always functioning well. And then my second role as First Gentleman was to like sit on my hands, zip it. So I went to all these events and stuff, and I learned very quickly. Actually, I didn't have to learn that very quickly. I knew right away. It's like, okay, we're just going to listen to what people say. I'm an introvert by nature, so I actually retired from the U.S. Forest Service. I have been on, the first part of my career, I was probably on hundreds of wildfires. So I saw firsthand kind of the nature of wildfires, but more importantly, I saw how wildfires have changed over time. So going from like initial attack, small fires, pretty easy to put out, to these large mega fires. It's very intimidating. As introverts, have you ever been to a party where there's like a bunch of Forest Service people there? Probably not. It may be similar in the military though, because it's like everybody, when they talk to each other, they're always looking at their feet. You avoid eye contact at all costs. So it's like, oh yeah, that ponderosa pine over there, it's just beautiful, isn't it? Or, wow, that geologic formation is stunning. But as an introvert, you tend to kind of, you observe people, you observe nature, and you observe life, and you observe people. And I had an opportunity with Kate to be on the front lines of everything that was going on. When you think about it, I actually had to make a list, which I can't find now. Oh, okay. I got a little ahead of myself. Let's see. Let me tell you about my father-in-law. He went into an assisted living facility a number of years ago, and this is nothing, don't take this, you're a ways off. But we toured a bunch of these different facilities, right? And all of you have had parents or done this same kind of thing. And they had a different range of costs and sizes and all that kind of thing. But there was one in particular that we toured, and I remember distinctly because the people that worked there loved their work. They loved the people that they served. And as we toured around with the administrator, you could tell that they had like a real admiration for the work that she was doing. And so the whole place, it just had an amazing feel about it. It wasn't the most expensive place, and it wasn't the largest, and it wasn't the smallest, but it had something really special about it. And you can always tell when you're in an organization like that, do people take a certain pride in their work? Do they admire the people that oversee them? Do they believe in what they're doing? During Kate's tenure, Oregon was subjected to, the amount of challenges was unbelievable. There was the Umpqua Community College shooting in Roseburg. There was a ferocious wildfire season, and then another ferocious wildfire season, and then another ferocious wildfire season. We had record-setting heat events, ice storms, racial unrest, and of course COVID. You mentioned a lot of these. It was kind of a crazy 8 years. I don't have to tell you how important the National Guard is to Oregon. You guys see it every day. Up until Kate became governor, I wasn't aware of everything that was done by the National Guard. It was a real eye-opening experience. A lot of times during emergency situations, first of all, there's a lot of stress. You described that well. Like if you're in the middle of a wildfire and it's blowing over the top of you, it's pretty stressful. I can tell you it's really stressful. But there's also a lot of hurry up and wait. And so there's a lot of times that I got to spend time with Major General Stencel. And then we've personally done some traveling together as part of Kate's team. So, I've really gotten to know Major General Stencel fairly well socially. I have no knowledge of National Guards in other states other than this one. This is the only one I know. And I have to tell you, I had that same feeling when we toured that healthcare facility. I had that same feeling about the Oregon National Guard. It is the people, when I watch Major General Hokanson interact with the people he oversaw, when I watch the pride of the people in the National Guard, it is outstanding. It is just an amazing organization. Kate sent a letter. I'm not going to read the whole thing. I don't know if you've received it yet. Okay, great. But I will just read a short portion of it. And she says, it has truly been my honor to work with you. Thank you for your extraordinary service to our beloved state and nation. Throughout it all, you have served with distinction, integrity, and courage. We all owe you a debt of gratitude. Both Kate and I thank you, Major General Stencel, for everything you've done for Oregon, and wish you the best in your next adventure. Oh, and also, I hope you do a better job in retirement than Kate. So, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Little. Ladies and gentlemen, please stand for the presentation of the Air Force Distinguished Service Medal. Attention to orders. The President of the United States, authorized by the Act of Congress on July 9, 1918, awards the Distinguished Service Medal to Major General Michael E. Stencel for exceptionally meritorious service and duties of great responsibility. General Stencel distinguished himself as Adjutant General, Oregon National Guard, Salem, Oregon, from 25 September 2015 to 31 October 2023. The strategic vision, resolute leadership, and unwavering efforts of Major General Stencel advance the United States' national security interests by providing trained and ready operational forces and the most lethal modern equipment for the nation's defense and domestic response. Major General Stencel's unceasing vigilance during these unprecedented periods endured that the Oregon National Guard remained a thriving force while providing unparalleled support to over 238 federal and domestic response missions while reinforcing national security partnerships with Vietnam and Bangladesh. His sage steering as chair and vice chair of multiple national councils focused on developing the National Guard of the future while allowing the Oregon National Guard to weigh in on national defense matters. His faithful stewardship ensured that limited resources were maximized and were reflected across Oregon's forces, facilities, and equipment. Major General Stencel has raised the Oregon National Guard's profile and reputation as a highly effective organization that is poised to continue to be a vital player in the support of our nation's security while protecting Oregonians. The singularly distinctive accomplishments of General Stencel culminate in a long and distinguished career in the service of his country and reflect the highest credit upon himself, the United States Air Force, and the Department of the Air Force. Please remain standing. General Hokanson will now present the Oregon Distinguished Service Medal. Attention to orders. For exceptionally meritorious service to the state of Oregon as the Adjutant General, Oregon National Guard from September 2015 to October 2023. As the Governor's Homeland Security Advisor, Major General Stencel provided more than 10,800 soldiers and over 1,600 airmen to respond to and conduct over 178 missions across the state of Oregon that included wildland firefighting, National Guard Response Force in support of civil unrest, countless search and rescue operations to include the 2020 search and rescue operation in support of the Umatilla floods, rescuing 52 individuals, winter ice storm response, and the unprecedented period of COVID-19 pandemic, which saw the largest state mobilization since World War II with over 9,200 guardsmen mobilized. General Stencel provided steadfast leadership and support to coordinate state response to and recovery from numerous federally declared disasters, many of historic proportions. He prioritized investment and growth in the Oregon Office of Emergency Management, setting the conditions for the office to become its own cabinet-level department. Major General Stencel was a diversity driving force with opening 3 new star-based programs locations for a total of 4 across Oregon. He provided strategic guidance and unparalleled support to Oregon Youth Challenge program, graduating over 1,000 students while expanding class size for 180 students twice annually to accommodate more female cadets and other deserving students. Major General Stencel's accomplishments reflect the finest traditions of military service and bring great credit upon himself, the Oregon National Guard, and the United States Air Force. General Hokanson will now direct the publishing of the retirement order. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing.
Publish the retirement order.
Attention to orders. Special Order Number 23031, dated 5 November 2023, by order of the Secretary of the Air Force, Major General Michael E. Stencel is relieved from his current assignment and placed on the United States Air Force retired list effective 5 November 2023. The people of the United States express their thanks and gratitude for your faithful service. Your contributions to the defense of the United States of America are greatly appreciated. Audience, please be seated. General Hokanson will now present the U.S. flag. The flag was flown over the nation's capital in recognition of General Stencil's retirement. For his service, General Stencil has received many certificates and letters. These will be available for guests to view after the ceremony at the reception. At this time, we would like to invite Mrs. Sue Stencil to please come forward for the presentation of the spousal certificate. It reads, Certificate of Appreciation from the United States Air Force. In grateful appreciation, the United States Air Force presents this certificate of recognition to Sue Stencil for the commitment and numerous contributions that made positive impacts to the nation's defense. Thank you for your support, which gave strength and purpose to your spouse's service. Signed, Charles Q. Brown, General, United States Air Force Chief of Staff. At this time, Colonel Groenwald, the Adjutant General, will present a gift on behalf of the land component.
Sir, on behalf of the soldiers, the non-commissioned officers, and the officers of the Oregon Army National Guard, we want to thank you for 8 years of leadership for the Oregon National Guard, for the Army National Guard, and to our state and nation. So thank you very much. This is an Air Force officer's sword. We almost got to get Army one.
Too dangerous.
Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Groenwald. At this time, Brigadier General Unruh will present the General Stencil the gift on behalf of the air component.
Well, sir, knowing what a sports fan you are, I asked the staff to put together something for you that you could wear based on your favorite team when you're leaving retirement. And sir, thank you from the bottom of our heart for all the airmen of the Oregon Air National Guard. Couldn't ask for better leadership and mentorship. We're so proud that you've been our Adjutant General. And thank you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, General Unruh. General Stencil received other unit and agency gifts, which will be available for guests to view after the ceremony. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to present to you, for the first time, Major General Michael E. Stencil, United States Air Force, retired.
Can't make this stuff up, right? 8 years and some things never change. All right, find the clicker here. Dim the lights. And wait for it. All right. If you could still help me with the lights too, I'd appreciate it.
All right, General Hokanson, thank you so much again for coming in and out here and recognizing me today. For those that don't know it, General Hokanson is missing out on the Air Force Army game that's happening out in Sea Springs right now. Captain Goodard, do you have an update on the score for us?
Sir, I do.
Hey.
It's an Air Force Day,
Well, first mistake. In talking with General Hokanson before he came down here, frankly, it was like talking with a fellow Husky. Here they start off with a lead, and so now he shares in his imagination. Now I'm figuring out all the ways we're going to throw this away and lose this game by the end of the day. So, sir, sorry. Still a lot of time left, I'm sure. But thank you all so much for coming. Family, friends, all the general officers and dignitaries that are here. I just can't thank you enough for recognizing me in this manner. It's incredibly humbling that you all showed up to be here. Yeah, a couple of years ago, my chief of staff, where are you, Party? There you are. General Party, she noted to me that she thought my lack of personality made me as a good leader. And, as any fighter pilot, I chose to take that as a compliment. And, but I think what she was getting to was the fact that, I was able to stand back and look at issues and decisions and keep emotion out of it, which I think is a great asset when you end up in my role. But I will tell you, the last couple of weeks here, getting out the door and everything, and the support that everybody's shown me, again, is just incredibly humbling. And please bear with me as I work through this. But I want to start out by congratulating Al Gronwall and his selection as the Adjutant General, and wish him and Rebecca and Peter all the best of luck over the next 8 years. It's a time for change, and I think Al is the right guy for this, and congratulations, Al. I also want to give a quick shout out to Lieutenant Colonel Carmen Barling. She put this whole act together, and as you can imagine, this is a big lift. So Carmen, wherever you're at, thank you for the help. Also to Lieutenant Colonel Barton for being the MC today. Chaplain Delbridge, thank you so much for coming back. Boy, he's always been there for invocations, benedictions, and as you heard, kindly included me in those prayers. I think you only forgot me once. I quickly pointed that out to him, and he never forgot me again. And certainly with the Lord's help, I'm where I am today. Sergeant Major Tasha Cruz, thank you so much for singing. Mike Gallagher, I know you're here, but a bit under the weather. His intent was to sing too, and unfortunately came down with a cold and couldn't really make it happen, but thank you so much. And the Army Band. Boy, back in the day, we'd go to Adjutant General events, General Reese and such, and you'd see the band over there, and you'd look at it, and boy, you've made it when you've got a band. And, I've had a band. So, boy, check that off the list. But really, what you provide to our culture and everything is much bigger than most people realize for a profession like this. So thank you so much for this one last show of support. So, boy, a couple of weeks ago, I had what I thought was a 95% solution on these remarks. And I don't remember what it was that Sue and I were watching on TV, but there was something on there that resonated with me, and it was already in my remarks. And I mentioned to her, I said, I think I'm gonna talk about that a little bit in my retirement remarks. Yeah, and she looks over at me and, you aren't gonna get preachy, are you? And I hope this doesn't come across as preachy, but you can imagine after being around this long, I've got a few things that I want to say, and I'm going to say them. So start off with this picture here. This picture actually isn't for you. This picture is here for you as we work on the sound. I took a cue from General Mark Welsh years ago and one of a briefings he's giving, and he had a hero shot at the very front of his briefing. And he put it up there, and his line was, "I just put this up here to remind myself that I was cool once." So this slider's for me. I don't know if B.J. Jorgens is here, but I think he took this shot of me when we were out flying out over the ocean years ago. So thanks, B.J., for that. All right, so there's a saying, and I think this the stage here and being all wood is very appropriate for it. When you see a turtle on a stump, you know it didn't get there on its own. So I'm Exhibit A on that. I don't know if this looks like a stump. It's a little bit bigger, but I owe a huge debt of gratitude to a lot of people. And starting off with Governors Brown and Kotek. Governor Brown initially entrusted me in this position, fortunate to work with her, and then Governor Kotek was kind enough to let me serve out the balance of my term under her administration. So Doug, if you please pass on my thanks to her as well. And so, well, this is my retirement. As General Hokanson pointed out, and this is really about all the men and women, the soldiers, airmen, and state employees that have stood behind me and throughout this full 8 years. If not for them, I would not have gotten here, and I would not have stayed here without all their support. So thank you all so much for that. I've been blessed by incredible mentors, up, down, sideways. Boy, when I first got in, kind of the cohort that we started off with, Jeff Silver, Bud Jones, Steve Gregg, Kevin Bodie, Mike Bush, Dave McKinney. I could just go on and on. Just an incredible group of people to be able to fly with. And we were being mentored by some Vietnam era fighter pilots back in the F-4 days, and there were a number of people that we'd hired from Nellis that were up, and to learn under them and their tutelage and everything was just an absolute blessing. And then here, getting down to headquarters, the Joint Chiefs of Staff, Stuart, I think you're out there in the middle somewhere. Boy, he started out with Stuart Matthew, but before that, I think I worked with Stuart for close to 20 years, and he's just been an incredible right hand for me. I would not be here if it was not for him. Followed him with Carl Pond, and then Brigadier General Jen Party have just been phenomenal right hands for me. Some great senior enlisted leaders. Started off with Command Sergeant Major Shane Lake, who taught me what it meant to be an Army soldier. It's not funny. There's a lot to learn for an airman, and it was important to have that support. Finished up at the end there with Chief Dan Connor on the air side of the house and Command Sergeant Major Lee Smith. It's just been incredible help. And what you see here is immediate staff from headquarters. Just a great group of people. No drama. The smiles you see there are genuine, and they're a group of folks that you could look forward to coming to work with and joining. So outside the National Guard, I think a lot of people here know I grew up in a little small town of Camas. And, it's one of those towns that you, frankly, or I did anyway, I think a lot of us, you grow up dreaming of escaping. But once you've been away from it for a while, you realize what a great childhood it was. Growing up in that experience and everything. And the families I ran around with, the Ericksons, the Trumbauers, the Gilmers, Schroeders, Camerons, Gabriels, Bertzels, all these families were families that you could look up to, and they were families that were, now I know, were looking out for you. So it's just an incredible experience, and you don't realize what you're absorbing from those folks, until you're older and you have a chance to reflect back on it. I've had some great supportive employers, like every drill status guardsman required. Initially, Brad Bullock with PNC, Rob Tucker, Lindy Hahn were hugely supportive of my time in the National Guard, and I would not have been able to serve without them. And then just a multitude of GOs. Don't worry, I'm not going to restate them all. But just an incredible supportive network. And folks like Daryl Bohack amongst the Adjutant Generals, him, Doug Farnham, Mike Lowe, just a host of people. Anytime I needed to pick up the phone and say, hey, have you ever had to deal with this? Or what do you think of that? Hey, I'm looking at going this direction. They were there for you immediately. And frankly, they were all wiser than me and great sage advice that I could get anytime. And I just want to thank them all for that. And then there's the chiefs too. Before General Hokanson, had the privilege of serving under General Gell, and then before that, General Frank Grass. In fact, small story, when I first got in this, literally 8 years ago, one of the first things I did was go down to one of our training centers in Southern California, and I think it was north of 100 degrees, dry, dusty. These folks were training basically to deploy in a few months, and it's really in the middle of nowhere. We're at the end of a long day, no cell reception, so I thought, as we're going to catch this small C-12 on a remote strip, and all of a sudden my phone starts buzzing, and I'm sitting on it. So I look down and it's General Frank Grass. I'm thinking, oh, great. Here I am, days in the job. I think I'm still a 1-star, and I've just butt dialed a 4-star chief of staff. So I'm getting ready to sheepishly answer this thing, and sir, what can I do for you? Mike Frank Grass, how you doing? Okay. What can I do for you, sir? And he said, Mike, I'm calling to see what I can do for you. What do you need? How are things going? I know it's only been a couple of weeks. Anything I can do for you? Anybody I can hook you up with? And that's the kind of leadership, I think General Hokanson describes that as leadership by the Eaches. Something he exemplifies, and everybody, even at that 4-star level, carries with them all the time. And I just wanted to give everybody that assurance. But nothing is more important in comparison to all that than having a proper upbringing. So Mom, Dad's not here, but thank you so much. Love you. All right. I feel like I should just drop this now and walk off after. So you Duck fans, you knew this was coming. I may be the tag of Oregon, but loyalty has its limits. And one thing I would tell you, it's like, being a Duck fans have no respect for rank. And every time, I didn't look up the record, I should have. I'd imagine it's about 50-50, or probably in Oregon's favor. But I'll tell you what, when Washington lost, you should see my offers or something, even somebody snuck in here before, and it's all purple and gold out, in anticipation of them winning. But maybe next time. You're never going to forget this one now. All right, so how did this whole thing for me start? The National Guard, one of our simplest slogans is simply, we serve. And I talk about that a lot at people's retirements and their promotions and everything, because of the incredible sacrifice that a lot of folks have to ever get to where they're at, or finally ultimately make it to retirement, and everything that they've done for the organization. And I'd like to tell you that that's why I got in, but it wasn't. Folks, I just wanted to fly. And there's a number of people in here that I grew up with, and I'll tell you that the standard pattern back in the day used to be, if we took off to the east, there was a climb and left-hand turn over Camas to head out over our airspace out over the Pacific Ocean. And boy, if I was outside playing as a kid and I heard that sound, it was heads up. Where are those airplanes? It's got to find them. And I just, that was the dream going up. And as I got older, still thinking about in college, John Walensky and I were both looking at going and flying military. And I was looking at the Guard, and my dad knew engineer down in the mill and a guardsman named Dick Winger, and hooked me up with him. And I gave Dick a call, and boy, he took me out to the base, let me sit in a jet, introduced me to a number of the pilots. Got an opportunity to go and sit in a debrief at the bar. This fits, this works for me. But what a dream to be an engineer during the day, a couple of days a week, leave early, and go fly an F-4. And it's like, man, I was hooked. And I got the opportunity to fly with a bunch of folks like Dick, the folks I mentioned earlier. And I will tell you, a lot of people here belong to organizations, clubs, and everything, but for me, there's just no better club in the world than a fire squadron. All right, so a number of us here, going back 30 years to what we were referred to as a strategic reserve. Over the last 30 years, we've evolved to what's called an operational reserve, and now we refer to it as an integrated reserve. And that's appropriate because what's happening is the National Guard and the active component, man, when we mobilize and deploy, we do it together. In the United States, the active component cannot deploy without the National Guard, so it's entirely appropriate. Because what's at play here is what we call the National Guard value proposition. Being a part-time organization, we're cheaper, we're more economical, we've got an incredible amount of experience that we're able to preserve, and we're more resilient. We're more resilient in terms of our dispersal across the country and our community basings and everything that the active component is not able to match on those larger bases. And we're also a vital link for the Department of Defense to our communities, and especially somewhere here in Oregon, where you don't have any active component. You know, having armories and everything in eastern Oregon or a fighter wing down at Klamath Falls, it allows the rest of America to know who we are, what we do, and what's at stake for all of them. But this construct, in the direction I want to go, it's under a lot of pressure. And for me, the million-dollar question is, and I think if you talk with a number of my peers, other adjutants general, there's not a consensus. You'll have some of them that think absolutely we're doing great, we're knocking it out of the park, and others will insinuate that we're struggling. Frankly, though, I don't think we have a choice. And this slide is really to talk about propensity to serve. And what's happening across the country is that propensity to serve is waning dramatically. And as an example of that, here in Oregon alone, between all components, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, active Guard and Reserve, 2 years, all of yeah, I know, and me turning and looking at him and staring at him doesn't do anything to help it. Maybe if I give him a more stern look. Right? My apologies as we work that out. But down 30% over the last 2 years. So that's, I would suggest to you, isn't just an Oregon problem, but a national problem that we need to get after. So on top of that, the ops tempo, the demands that are on the National Guard, as you heard about the wildfires, the vaccine, the pandemic and everything. This construct where everybody thinks it's 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year, just a total of 39 days, is really a thing of the past. And another statistic I'll share with you is that over the last 2 years, a reminder, this is post-COVID, it was worse during COVID, but the average guardsman in Oregon served more than 100 days. 100 days per year. So you think of the impact that that has on their family, on their employers and everything. That's just a huge stress that most people don't think about. On top of that, we're fighting against low unemployment. People are able to get jobs somewhere else. You've got an active component that's shrinking, which is a great source of experience for us to draw from in the National Guard. And then you've got a declining number of parents that are veterans, which is a huge denominator for us in being able to recruit folks. And then Oregon has the additional challenge, which I mentioned before, no active component. And so for young men and women in Oregon, it's really hard for them to envision themselves being something that they cannot see. So back to that question as to whether or not, the National Guard is sustainable, I'd say practically, absolutely. We see it every day. General Hokanson shares the quote, always ready, always there. And he will attest that any time he calls and asks for National Guard troops, whether here in Oregon or anywhere else in the country, we make it happen? But my answer to that would be, even though we can do it practically, morally, I don't think it's fair. We're asking an incredible amount from our National Guardsmen to step up and do this year after year, and we're starting to see some of the toll it takes. So if we stick with this model, I think we have to get after America's declining culture of service and look for a better way to resource the National Guard. So I think we all know that that's a little bit easier said than done. We recently celebrated the 50th anniversary of the all-volunteer force for the services, which is huge for us. You go back to Vietnam, and it's certainly a direction we had to go, and I will attest for everybody in here in uniform that just the folks that we're able to recruit are absolutely phenomenal. But that all-volunteer force, coupled with a shrinking active military, comes at a price. And it comes at a price and a loss of advocacy. When you look across the country, actually the size of the military, we're less than 1% of the total population of the country. And you look at that and the implications and the consequences for us, when people don't feel those consequences, they're less inclined to be active and engaged in what's going on politically. And it's easy to start pointing fingers at military leadership, at General Hokanson and myself, the media, some of the elected officials. But I would suggest to you that this is a much bigger problem than that. And the problem, really, the people that need to solve it are sitting right here. We're sitting here and we're sitting outside in our communities and everything. And it needs more engagement on the part of America as a whole. So why do I bring this up now here at retirement? Earlier this summer, Nathan and I took a road trip out to Boston, and one evening after getting some of the boxes unloaded, I'm thinking that we just moved our whole house, so we're living in a box city. He was moving in an apartment, and in contrast, it actually was nothing, but it seemed like a big deal at the time. So we head up to Lexington and Concord, and I'm sure some people here recognize this photo of, this is that bridge in Concord, and that's the plain there where that first skirmish happened with the British back in 1775. And on that day, 49 colonists died. So here we are coming up in this decade on the 250th anniversary of our independence, and more than 1.1 million service members have given their life for this country. They were of every race, every ethnicity, every religion, every sexual orientation. And I think we should feel a sense of obligation to live our lives as though we owe them something. It sounds kind of trite. We know people are going out there, we're going out there and we're fighting for our rights, our freedoms, our liberties. But for this democracy to work, we have to do more than accept them. We have to be willing to exercise them. And to do that, I would argue with you that we need to be more educated and more engaged. So General Hokanson, somebody, I don't know if you got a copy of my notes, but it's a phrase, a quote from John Kennedy that has always resonated with me too, where he noted that too often we enjoy the comfort of opinion without the discomfort of thought. I couldn't agree more. And when I first got into this job, actually even before that, I've been just a huge advocate of education and learning. And one of my mantras has been, leaders are learners. And beyond that, I always encourage our folks in the long term to be lifelong learners. I just think it's incredibly important for the resiliency, not only within the military, but for all Americans. As you look at the accelerating challenges and everything that we continue to face as a country, that's where we build that resiliency. And my advice to them is to start off with history. One of my favorite authors is David McCullough. And he puts the question out there of, how can you know where you're going if you don't know where you've been. And history really gives us a sense of proportion, and it reassures us that the stuff we're going through now, we've been through much worse in the past. And if you look at everything from that perspective, it dramatically changes how you look at things. After that, I suggest to them that they go for breadth. And don't forget, social sciences, arts, humanities. Get travel in there too if you can afford it. Anything to broaden and break down those bridges or barriers and build bridges into the future. A quote I will add is one of John Adams that I particularly like. He says there's two educations. One of them is for making a living, and the other one teaches you how to live. And I think we've lost sight of that, not just for within the military, but even outside of that. When you look at education, I think we've forgotten that getting an education is a lot more than just getting a job. It's about instilling values, it's about thinking critically, and it's about being able to communicate and share your thoughts in a way that other people will understand. So how do we engage? As citizens, I think engagement calls for us to focus less on our rights and more on our responsibilities. If you look at this slide here on the right side, that's a mass transit system in Bangladesh, just outside of Dhaka. You look at a picture like that, and I think you can make a good argument that we've got a responsibility to care about and care for other citizens of the world and what their culture is and what their issues are and what the impact of our actions are on them. Here at home, you look there in the middle there, we absolutely got to stay informed on the issues and the actions of our elected officials as well. But beyond that, and I think most importantly, is shown there on the right, is we have to afford respect to our fellow Americans and their opinions, and recognize that even though they don't agree with our own, we can work through this together. There's another facet of engagement that I want to talk about briefly, and that's service. For me, it doesn't matter if it's public service or military service. Since I'm up here in a uniform, though, I'm going to take a second just to talk about military as well. And I think anybody in uniform or any of the veterans here would agree with me that the benefits of military service are absolutely enormous. You look at, the best and brightest, our wealthiest, our most powerful serve alongside those that are less fortunate. Just the entire country benefits. When I first got in, one of the Army phrases I quickly learned when I'd go out on AT visits or downrange is ask a young soldier how they're doing, and the response was, "Could suck worse, sir." And it typically could. As kind of a wimpy Air Force guy, I had a hard time picturing that, but in their eyes it could. But what I'm getting at is it's really that shared misery, if you will, going through that over a drill and that type of training and sharing a foxhole and the struggles that you endure through that military experience create a bond and a level of trust and everything that you just can't match out there in a professional civilian population. So here's my last ask. We're almost done, but going into retirement here, been asking so much of everybody in uniform here over the last 8 years, and everybody stepped up. And I see what General Hokanson, asks of people, across the country. I don't want this to be for naught. So my ask is that you get involved and you become proponents for education, and that we take the time and effort to make service a thing again. I think this country absolutely needs us to be engaged, responsible citizens. And unless it starts here and we sharing that outside these walls, we're going to be in a world of hurt. All right, last slide to wrap it up. Susan, can you join me? Yep. So I think we've all got a slide like this. I hope you do. But, so we've got this slide. Which side are you on? Oh, block. You know, this is a picture of all the folks that have been standing by me and made the biggest sacrifices. And 34 years ago, Sue and I decided to take a risk on each other. And I won. But what I often share, singer-songwriter Martina McBride, with the help of what she describes as wild angels, somehow we were able to make this thing work. And I will tell you that any redeeming qualities that I have, especially when it comes to empathy or compassion, I got it from Sue. A lot of military members in here. You probably, folks have read Admiral McRaven's book, Make Your Bed. It's a simple, easy read, but his point is really, you know, the first thing you got to do is stand up, take that initiative, get your day going proactively and everything, and have a sense of direction and accomplishment, and get your life going. And I will tell you, for our family, literally and figuratively, this is the person that does that. You know, in 34 years, I've spent more than 2 years in drills alone. So it's been Sue that's raised the kids, made our house a home. And I will tell you something, we've just been absolutely blessed. 3 wonderful kids that stand on their own feet, between them, I don't know, 5, 6 degrees on their own, but responsible. And, you know, this job's hard enough, I think, if somebody didn't have kids. But to have 3 kids like this make it easier, and I just feel absolutely blessed. So thank you, all the support that you've given Sue and I, and thank you so much for allowing us to serve with you.
Thank you, General Stencel. The men and women of the United States Air Force, the United States Army, and the Oregon National Guard are proud to have served with you. Your knowledge, wisdom, dedication, and friendship will be very missed. We wish you all the best as you start this new chapter. Ladies and gentlemen, please remain standing for the benediction and the departure of the official party.
Sir, thanks for inviting me back and making me not feel like I'm so preachy. Although, no, I liked it. I loved it. Let us pray. Almighty God, what an honor to be a part of this ceremony, to see old friends and comrades, enjoy the remembrance and humor. May General Stencel leave here today knowing that he has our respect and our appreciation. As you have guided and opened doors through his career, we now ask that you'll continue to guide and open doors in the next chapter of this life, that many will benefit from him continuing to use his experience, gifts, and energy in any new work that he feels called to. Bless his family, his marriage, and we ask that you continue to bless the Oregon National Guard in its vital mission together as blue and green. Raise up young people. Prepare our next leaders. Bless our Commander-in-Chief, Governor Tina Kotek, and all of her decisions and work. We pray blessing to be upon our nation's Commander-in-Chief, President Joe Biden, and the difficult decisions he and his staff are making. As we continue this ceremony and that we leave here now, we know that we stand in a long line of dedicated citizen soldiers and airmen over the centuries, and we shout with them, and we shout with all who follow us, and we shout from purple mountain majesties, and we shout from sea to shining sea, God bless America. Amen.